Maar moet je nu je lachpaar.
The Midnight Club was definitely a thing, or was it?
Ooh. The Midnight Club is a story about stories.
The Midnight Club is a mid-90s high school flashback fueled by Christopher Pike.
Very good.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fallingtower's Watch the First podcast in which we watch the first episode of a series so that you don't have to. You guessed it, we are doing The Midnight Club, which is a show on, what is it, Netflix? Netflix. Yeah. What a deal. We're going to talk about it. The first episode is called Awesome. They actually have a title. It's called The Final Chapter. Very clever title. And joining us in this fun show, of course, is our very special guest co-host, Dr. Muhammad Noor. You know him, you love him.
Hello. Always a pleasure to be on Fallingtower's Watch the First of Things.
Joining us as our very special guest, of course, is, you know her as the Klingon Pop Warrior. And if you don't, you should. It's Jen Ucelis. How are you?
Good. I'm excited to be here. I have feelings about shows.
Ooh, this is exciting. Stay tuned to find out what those are.
Even though I'm in my full Klingon ridges, it's always exciting to talk about something that isn't Klingon. So, yeah.
You're going to do the review in Klingon?
No. Oh, my God. I wouldn't know any. I know like 3 things, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, this is the Midnight Club. The final chapter is the first episode is called, which I thought was a very clever thing. That's cool. This is the final episode of Horror Month. Horror Month. Oh, ooga booga. And then after that, next, you guys, we are doing 80s sitcom month. So everybody in the comments below, make your suggestion of a sitcom that started in the 80s. Could be bad, could be good. Maybe you've never seen it before. Whatever you want, make your suggestion, but please tell us where we can stream it. Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, whatever, because if we can't stream it, then how are we going to... I don't have any DVDs or
and please not with
VHSs.
jump scares. We've had enough jump scares for the whole month.
Yep. So make your suggestions, everybody, in the comments below, and please make sure to give us a like and a subscribe. Give us a 5-star rating and a fun review. And everybody's like, are you going to review the show, or are you just going to talk about your podcast? We're going to review the show starting now. But how do we start the review, Muhammad?
Oh, I think we're in a predicament about how to start it.
So Muhammad's being very punny right now. What we do is we've known each other for, a few years. Jen and I have known each other for a few minutes. Muhammad and Jen kind of little bit here and there, right? So we like to predict if the other person liked it. And everybody at home, feel free to make your predictions as well. I'm going to start. Muhammad, I predict that, in fact, this is not a prediction. This is a spoiler. You did not like the jump scares. However, the show itself, I think you did like this. I think you're almost liking it very much. Right on the cusp of a very much level is what I think for you. Jen, based on what I know about you, you have Klingon garb, and that's all I know about you. I'm going to say you also like this, but slightly less than Muhammad. What do you think, Muhammad?
So I think Ryan liked this pretty well. I mean, I can guess one of the concerns that you're going to have about it is going to be just the sheer number of people to keep track of. It's going to be one of the things you probably are not crazy about. But I think overall, I think you like the plot here, especially the build, and then there's like open things to try to draw you back in. So I'm guessing if you're on a score of 1 to 10, I'm guessing you might come in like mid-7s, maybe even higher 7s. Jen, I think you might like this even more. So I know you do like horror, and I know you like being scared. So I think maybe you might even be in the 8s range somewhere. So that's my prediction.
Jen, do you have any predictions for us?
because I don't know you, Ryan, as you said, just a few minutes. Muhammad and I have met in Twitter circles, but that's about it. I'm going to say, Ryan, I think that you might like this, although you may think it's a little juvenile. And then Mohammed, I'm going to say, looking at your face, like I'm trying to channel my inner Jimmy Carson. I'm gonna say you kind of liked this. You might watch the next episode just to see.
Fair predictions.
Now, everybody at home, you've gotten some pretty good hints as Jen sips from her awesome Captain Janeway mug from the Voyager documentary. Shout out to them. So make your predictions in the live chat or in the comments below. Do you think I liked this episode? Do you think Muhammad liked this episode? Do you think Jen liked it? Make your predictions. Type away. Take your time. No rush. Muhammad's going to buy you a little bit of time by telling us all what this show is even about.
I'll give you a couple of minutes on it. So, Ilanka is a bright high school graduate with a promising future, one that's abruptly cut short by thyroid cancer. Her doctors declare her situation as terminal. Ilanka has strange flash visions of a hospice and stumbles upon this particular hospice in an internet search on Yahoo, by the way. She convinces her foster father to enroll her there and gets to know a cast of other teens there. A subset of the teens meet at midnight, the Midnight Club, to trade ghost stories and promise each other to reach out from the other side when they pass. But several mysteries, visions, and shadows are teased in this pilot episode that remain unresolved at the end.
Gripping.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. So that's it. Votes are in. It's time to start finding out what we actually thought about this as the information trickles in our next segment that Muhammad and only Muhammad likes to call
Expect Getchin. So what did you expect and what did you getchin? You have to punch as you say it too, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the rule.
That's the rule.
We don't make the rules. We just follow them. So we compare and contrast what we expected versus what we actually got. So Dr. Noor here, what did you expect before you watched this first episode, if anything?
I knew absolutely nothing about this show. It was horror month and it's something on Netflix and it's called The Midnight Club. That is literally all I knew about it. I even mentioned to various people saying, well, what are you guys recording for Watch the First? I said Midnight Club. And they're invariably the answer would be like, never heard of it. So very, very, very little.
Interesting. But what about you, Jen? What did you expect, if anything, before you watched this first episode?
So the minute terminally ill teenagers enters a description of anything, I'm like, deuces. I'm pretty much A, expecting a total downer, and B, it's funny because I read this, I remember reading the description of this show and I passed. I was just like, nah, no thanks. But I enjoyed Haunting of Hill House and Midnight Mass, which I believe the guy who wrote this show also wrote both of those, was the showrunner and producer on both of those. So I'm like, all right, well, I'll watch a preview. So I watched a preview, which I still, by the time the preview was over, I was like, this is still probably going to be a downer with a jump scare or two, maybe, and maybe a weird conspiracy, and maybe just good old fashioned spooky haunted house. I dig haunted house stuff. So I was like, okay, haunted house, you got me. There's your hook for me.
It's a great description.
Yeah.
And we just did Haunting at Hill House, was it 2 or 3 weeks ago?
Oh, that was such a good show.
Go check that out. That is episode number 133, WTF number 133, The Haunting of Hill House, with actress Kelly Park. Kelly Ann Park. Also, forgot to mention, The person that suggested the Midnight Club was our good pal, Mr. David Gregory. David Gregory, this is for you and everybody else, but, for you kind of more. All right, I'll tell you what I expected before I watched this first episode. Nothing. I didn't know anything about it. Never heard of it. That's it. I knew it was kind of long. I think it's like 58 minutes. I remember going like, okay, we'll do this for you, David Gregory, but you owe us a drink at the next STLV because 58 minutes is really pushing your luck here. 43 minutes, more up my alley. 22 minutes, hey, I'm your guy. So
and then there was the what's the tree guy from Marvel?
Groot. Yeah.
Groot, yeah, the Groot show.
Where it was 6 minutes, but 2.5 minutes of that was credits. Oh. Anyway, so that's what we expected, everybody. However, we did end up watching this episode. Muhammad, upon watching this viewing this episode, what did you actually get?
I found it a mixed bag. There were some things I really liked, and there were some things that I found kind of dull. So I'll say, like, the as soon as the terminal thing, I had the same reaction as Jen. I didn't know about this going into the episode, what it was going to be. Because as soon as I was like, oh, really? It's not one of these things with the like terminal kid. Oh, I didn't like that at all. Especially then when they were going then to a hospice. Like, oh my God, it's like a whole bunch of terminal kids, not just one. Really? So yeah, I was worried it was going to be a downer. It wasn't as much of a downer as I thought it would be. At least for the pilot episode. Maybe for later ones it will be. One of the things I had a hard time with, this is the thing I'm guessing Ryan probably didn't love, is I usually take notes on who the people are. Oh my God, it's like the entire side of this page is people. Like there's so many people. Like which one was Brian versus Kevin versus Mark? Like, oh my God, there's so many people to learn here.
I think I
try
got
to keep
them all.
track of.
I think I got them all.
I mean, I have all their names down here, but I don't know that I can go back and remember. I have little notes by each one. Anya, roommate. Rachel, past roommate. All these things, but there's still like just a lot of people there. So I found the first half of it kind of slow, but once they actually got to the Midnight Club, it was a little bit more interesting because I liked seeing sort of where the development was going to be and what their interactions with each other were going to be a little bit more like, as opposed to the dad who I don't know the dad's going to have any part of the show later on. So that was it seemed like that was just kind of dispensable. But again, overall mixed bag. There are elements of it that I liked, and we can go into this more details as we talk about the episode. But there are elements where I was like, yeah.
What about you, Jen? What did you actually get upon viewing this first episode?
So the minute that the name of the show flashed across the screen, I turned to my husband. I was like, oh, that was like some like R.L. Stein, like Goosebumps vibe kind of thing. Like in my head, I couldn't quite place it, but I was like, this reminds me of like books like from the library. And I didn't know at that point, like I didn't know anything about it. And then in the opening credits, it says Christopher Pike in the opening credits. And I was like, okay, all right. And I kind of just like relaxed into it from there. I was like, you know what? Like, all right, take me on this ride. Like, especially because 1994, I actually graduated college in 95. So this was like the soundtrack for this episode freaking slapped for me. I was like Stereo MC, Cypress Hill. There was that Collective Soul song. I was like, oh yeah. Once it got going, I was just like, okay, I'm in for it. And I loved that the opening sequence for it too. She's got the like red dye and it looks like blood. And I'm just like,
it was blood.
What is going on? Like it completely like got me, just kind of just yanked me in right away. And I was just like, okay, take me on your journey. Like, what is this going to be? And like, I kind of just relaxed into it. Yeah.
See, I don't know who Christopher Pike is outside of Star Trek lore. But apparently he's some kind of important writer or something.
Yeah, he was an author. He wrote horror books for like teenage, like junior high school level reading. And it was like Goosebumps was like for kids, and then you graduated to Christopher Pike, and then from Christopher Pike you probably went to like
Anne Rice. Stephen King. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what I got. What I got, Jen, spot on. What I got was an excellent soundtrack. And let me tell you, I had no idea it was going to take place in the 90s, but then I heard that first 90s song and I was like, oh, that's cool. I like this. And then it immediately goes into Interstate Love Song by Stone Temple Pilots. And I was like, oh my God, I love this show so much. And then today I was like, I'm going to wear my old ass Stone Temple Pilot shirt, but then I put it on and it turns out it's green, just like my green screen. So you can only see actual. Look how old that shit is.
Amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, but I wanted to wear this and now I'm sad that I can't wear it. Well, maybe I'll be the headless horse guy. There we go.
Oh, you're there for a second.
Hey.
So just pretend I'm wearing my Stone Temple Pilot shirt and representing, because Interstate Love Song can't go wrong with that. And yeah, and everything, you know, Collective Soul, Shine. I mean, we know that drops us right back into 1994, summer of 94. Anyway, and that's what I like best about this show. The rest was it was kind of a mess. It was kind of a mess. Not terrible, and there are definitely some good aspects, but it certainly went downhill from there. I was all for it, and then I was less for it, and less for it, and then was like, all right, so it's kind of like the equivalent of like oatmeal, but with like some, like, imagine if you're eating oatmeal and there's like chocolate chips and you're like, okay, but then there's also like pickles. You're like, I'm not sure if that, you know, and then there's also like a little bit of gravel. And
oh my God.
But then there's also like maybe
what kind of oatmeal is this?
You know, but that's what I mean. What kind of show is this? Anyway, well, let's
like when you give me nostalgia, I'm like, okay, I'm here for it. I mean, as I sit here sipping from my Janeway mug, you know, like,
right?
Give me some good high school nostalgia, like, because I don't remember it being that great, but I loved the music.
Well, okay. Muhammad, you and I agree that it was a mixed bag. I think Jen's a little bit higher on it. What did you not like about it, Muhammad? What made you go like, instead of
It's a good question. I mean, I just honestly, like, for the first half, I had a hard time just getting into it. It just felt like just watching somebody do stuff, and I couldn't see where it was going for a long time. Aside from like there were these flashes, it just felt like it was just this movement, you know, and why things were happening was never clear. Like, for example, when what's name Alanka, when she followed Anya going downstairs, it was kind of like, why is she even following her? Like, okay, she snuck out of her room. Like, why would you go follow this person and go that far? There were so many things like that where I was just like, what? Why? And these people just kind of, these things would get introduced and people get introduced, but like not with enough depth that I'd be interested, but not with enough but it was enough that it was distracting. So I just found it like, it felt stream of consciousness a little bit, but like towards the end, especially when they got to the story, though the story itself was a little bit funny. I can't remember the name of the person who was actually telling the first story. That got a little bit interesting there, like when Ilanka told the story about Julia Jane, and that was referring back to the article she'd seen earlier. I was like, okay, now you've got me a little more interested than before. Because up until that point, I've been just kind of bored. I mean, I wasn't like
Natsuki was telling the first story.
Natsuki, okay, I have that name, but I didn't remember which one it was because there's so many names. But yeah, that got me a little bit more interested. Like, okay, I see now there's something interesting about this place, and maybe they can get cured. Maybe she's interested in getting cured. Maybe that's what the shadow is about. Maybe the thing about the coming back to haunt them. Maybe that's what's happening with the shadow. Maybe that is somebody previously from the Midnight Club. At least got me a little bit intrigued by the end. But up until the point where Ilanka was seen by the others at the Midnight Club, I was very much like, it just felt very stream of consciousness to me.
If there was just so much exposition because there's so many characters.
Yeah,
so many characters.
I feel like they should have done it in pieces. I feel like they should have just like, okay, we're gonna expose this piece and just that, and just focus on that, and then the next episode focus on this other character and build on that, as opposed to just trying to introduce them all. It's like, okay, this is just overwhelming.
You know, for once, I was actually fine with how they introduced all the characters. I thought that they just kind of brought, I was totally okay with it this time. Normally, I'm like, more than 3 characters.
That's where I was. I was there this time.
But this time, and there was only one that I didn't care for throughout. Spoiler, it was this one. The grumpy Irish something or other. I was like, okay, we get the shtick, but it didn't work for me. But I'll tell you what really, at the core of it, from the very beginning, what made me just go, okay, what the hell is going on, was the jump scares were so poorly done.
Oh,
and
it was way over the top.
It was just like, where did that come from? And they're like, yeah, that's how we get. But usually if there's a jump scare kind of, horror show, if it has the tone of a horror show throughout. So you're watching it and there's like a tense moment. And then it's like there's a little stressful thing and a little black cat runs by and you're like, is that something? No, is that something? And then boom, there it is. Or there's spooky music. This had zero. I mean, like, to be honest, I forgot I was watching a horror thing in the first 5 or so minutes because it wasn't a horror thing at all. It had no tense music. It was chill. And then there was just like a flash of like a scary whatever thing. And then right back to Beverly Hills 90210 with dying kids. And it was just so misplaced and poorly placed that I'm like, is this a joke? It's not horror to me. It's a fucking joke. Anyway, I'm getting a little too harsh on it, but that was my biggest qualm, I think.
I actually thought that was intentional. Now, I'm not defending it because I thought the same thing, but I almost thought it was intentional. I thought it was supposed to be like this, like just kind of shocking, not necessarily a scary shocking, but just plain shocking. And then in the
so
story when they had in the story where they had the jump scares, it was almost making fun of it because the others were like, really jump scare? So that was a little funny. Like,
I hope it was making fun of itself on purpose, because if it was not, then we were just laughing at it instead of with it.
It's true.
Yeah.
Did those jump scares work on you, Jen?
The early ones didn't. And what's really funny is I watched the episode twice, and I watched it once just like sitting down, taking it in, watching it. And then I watched it again to kind of like just jot some thoughts down. And what was really funny was the second time I watched it with headphones in, and the sound design actually got me for the story time jump scare with I dubbed her, she was like the little ring girl in the street. And when she asks, she's like, "Are you lost?" And you hear that, and he sees her, and then she's like, "I can't hear you." And I'm like, oh, she's going to come out. She's going to come out. She's going to come out. And when I watched it, just watching it, I didn't get it. But when I was watching it with earplugs in, it came in just in my left ear and it sounded like it was coming from behind me.
Oh.
And so it actually got me. The second watch through, I kind of went, oh, instead, but like the first one, just like watching it, it didn't get me as much as it did that second time where it was like really right up in my ears. So like I appreciated the sound design a little bit more.
I disagree slightly with something Ryan said. Actually, I thought
good. I'm ready.
This girl right here was like one of the most interesting characters. Like I loved after Ilonka did that story. It was a pretty awesome story. And there's just silence. And she's like, "Well, you don't have to be such a drama queen."
Yeah,
was that dry delivery? They're like, "Oh my god, that was great."
Yeah, I actually looked that actress up, and this is her first role.
Wow.
Yeah, I can tell. Jesus. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just being mean. Okay, well, how about this? Jen, who was your favorite character out of all of them?
Ooh, I think I'm actually really interested to see where Amesh goes. He's like, kind of the nerd of the group. So he was the one who was playing video games. Yeah, he was playing video games. And there was that great moment where he's like, nobody hazed me. And they were trying to like, he was so upset about like, I'm not going to college. So like, why can't you just do it? So then when they're in the hallway and they're showing her the elevator, he has this great moment where they're like, no, really don't go down there. Like, cause they were first like, oh yeah, no, don't go down there. And they're like, no, don't. And he just turns to Spence and he's like, I get it now. This isn't a good place to do hazing. It's just mean. Remind me to thank everybody later. And so like, just sort of, I just really loved that moment of like, no, that was stupid of me, bro. And I'm really glad to not be the new guy anymore. So I'm looking forward to seeing where he goes.
Why do they have a morgue there? Like, isn't that kind of weird? Like, why would you have a morgue?
Well, I hope we find out. I
seems
hope
like
we find out.
somebody come pick up the person and leave. It's like, why do you need an on-site morgue?
Or, right.
Maybe it's just like so far away. It's just so like out in the middle of nowhere. But you know,
Yeah.
before we move on to Muhammad's favorite character, it just hit me another thing that bothered me about this is that because I was looking at the very end, it closed with Flagpole Sitta by Harvey Danger.
Yeah.
Great song, great album, love it, awesome, right? Totally fun. But then I realized literally the only thing that made me think this might be in the 90s was the music. Like the clothing didn't look like that, typically 90s. The talk that, in fact, they also did my pet peeve, which is they said things that were not said in the 90s that are vernacular of today in the 90s. So I don't know that I'm like, look, if this is gonna take place in the 90s and you're gonna play 90s music, you got to commit to actually making this look like the 90s.
Do you expect them to jump forward? Because I mean, it started by opening saying it was 1994 Sacramento, and I thought that was going to be that, and then they're going to jump 30 years in the future.
Yeah.
But then it was just like, no, we're just set then. Like,
oh,
okay, I guess just set in the 90s.
Everything that was 90s was kind of in the background. Like it was that she used Yahoo to look it up, and she also used dial-up in
right.
that
was pretty badass. You're right.
We did use Yahoo in I was like, well, wait a minute, no, hold on. What about Ask Jeeves? Like, and then what's his name? The one kid who was when she got there and he was sitting on the bench. He had a Discman and he was listening on his Discman.
Kevin Leukemia.
Yeah.
I thought that was Brian.
Was it?
Brian.
I thought Brian was the kid at the party.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, Brian was the kid at the party.
Yeah.
And does he just disappear or does he show up later? That's okay.
Again, it's all these little
I'm okay with that because who knows if he's going to come back later. We have no way of knowing. But
they also the new agey thing called yoga.
Yeah, that was funny.
Like Hindi for bullshit.
That was funny.
Yeah, I missed that very beginning with the 1994 Sacramento thing. I just had to piece that because I think I was just looking down and typing in, oh, good 90s song. And then, so I was typing that instead of seeing that. And then I was like, I guess it takes place in the 90s. And then the dude was wearing a Sacramento Kings hat. So I'm like, oh, I guess they're in Sacramento. But I could have just been watching. And
I was totally expecting a jump forward at some point. Like, this is the backstory. Now we're going to jump to the today. But like, nope, it's just them. Like, okay.
So, Muhammad, who was your favorite character?
I think I'd have to say Anya. I mean, she at least I'm anticipating greater depth than was obvious there. So that's part of why I think I liked her the most. So I did like the main character a lot. I thought she was pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to go too hard on you.
Oh,
well done.
I know.
Well done.
Thank you.
I like it.
Thank you. I'm going to say my favorite character was the girl with the obvious fake wig. I thought that was funny.
Sherry? Is that her name?
No. Sherry's the liar.
Oh, yeah.
Her name was, wait for
Sandra?
it. Yes, Sandra, exactly.
Got it.
Lymphoma, Jesus freak, wig. She had good delivery. She was funny and charming and likable. I thought she was cool. Very close second. Yeah, Amish as well. Amesh. He was funny. Good delivery. And it was a very good moment when he's like hazing her and like he's saying, go down to the, downstairs and check that out. And at the very end, he's like, no, don't go. Never mind. It's not funny. It's a good moment. That was maybe the best moment of the episode, I thought. But who was your least favorite character?
I couldn't really figure Spence out.
I'm suspicious of this nurse guy, Mark. I think there's something ominous there.
Ooh, interesting. Maybe he's a ghost.
Maybe. Was it? I think it was Spence that didn't like him. I remember somebody didn't like him, but I can't remember if it was Spence.
Oh, good point.
He's young and cute and funny and not dying. What's not to hate? Yeah.
It was Spence that didn't like him. Yeah, you're right.
I didn't understand also Dr. Georgina Stanton. She looks awful young. She looked awfully young for somebody who bought that property like 30 years before.
What if they're all ghosts? What if
Yeah,
like
very
all
true. She
of
doesn't
them are
age.
ghosts?
Oh, are we gonna get M. Night Shyamalan
Yeah.
in later
Yeah.
episodes? Is
Oh, we
that
also got some Cypress Hill, which was very nice to hear. Very
yes?
welcome.
Yep.
You see, Muhammad, Cypress Hill,
I was alive then too. I remember.
And it wasn't even jump around. It was insane in the. It was
Yeah.
insane in the membrane or
membrane. Insane in the brain.
You mentioned Dr. Georgina Stanton. I like that discussion about the language of battle and permission to leave the battlefield and stuff like that. I was like, oh, that actually, that's quite, moving. I was like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, okay, I see
I
this.
took a bunch of notes around that. We focus
Same.
on living instead of fighting. Every living day here is a win.
Yeah, that quote
Yeah.
exactly. Every living day is a win. Like, yeah, I mean, that's true for everybody, whether you're terminal, because to some extent we're all terminal, just, long
Yeah.
different lengths of time, right? So,
Right.
I thought that was great too. Very good.
Yeah.
Because, a hospice is a place where you are no longer battling.
Right.
That's what that is. And that's, they're saying permission to leave the battle and then just get a win every time you wake up. It's a totally different kind of goal with that. Also, did we think that the dad was the stepdad was such a hero for missing work for his dying daughter's 18th birthday? I was like, why are you
yeah, no, that seemed overstated.
like,
yeah.
What a guy. What, you are skipping some of your work day to go see your dying daughter's 18th. What, boy, dad of the year here.
I don't know. To be fair, he was a foster dad.
That's true.
And he kept on saying, was it Maggie? I promised Maggie. I promised, like, okay,
Yeah.
I mean, or you could just do it because you're a good person.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, she's dead. So now I got to show up and give you a cake. I had to wait in line behind 2 people buying that cake. Happy birthday, kid. Jesus.
One thing that I thought was interesting, just because I like financial stuff, is this idea that you had to recertify the fact that you're dying every 6 months.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I didn't know that
too.
Very, very freaking insurance. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
That's interesting though. And that kind of goes into the stuff. Honestly, what I liked was, just the story of the kids and the different characters and the horror aspect. I didn't even think it was horror. It was like they tell each other ghost stories, but the ghost stories weren't like scary or tense. They were just more silly or ridiculous or
right.
like that. It just felt like 2 separate entities. Is this a horror series or is this a kids show, with beautiful lines and interesting characters and sad moments and, like that could just be its own show. It's a good premise besides the horror aspect. I think the premise of the hospice for dying 18-year-old kids that only one of them actually looks like she's dying, whereas all the others look great.
I have a note saying Ryan will say there's not enough horror.
Really? I thought there was too much horror. I could have 100% done without the horror and just enjoyed the show for that. I thought that the horror was just dropped in like in weird random places.
It honestly, if nothing else, I will probably go and watch the second episode because I'll usually. Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Spoiler.
It's okay.
But
sorry. Earmuffs, everybody. Earmuffs.
It's okay.
But yeah, like it because it felt like the beginning. The whole thing felt like exposition, and so I was like, okay, well now I want to know where this is going, and I'll usually try to give a show a couple episodes, like 2 to 3 episodes. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump ahead, everybody.
It's okay.
Not at all. We should put out that warning next time. Say, don't let them know. But you never know, because by the end of this review, you might change your mind. It has happened. I've changed my mind once or twice. I've waffled. I've been like, you know what? You guys are right. Where people like bully me into saying that, yes, I will. People can be real bullies, and I'm susceptible to bullying.
Well, there's kind of really criticisms you didn't think of. You're like, okay, fine, I won't watch it. This is pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, Muhammad, so what did you like best about, or did you kind of cover that when you were talking about when the doctor was saying her moment that was nice?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that was the part I liked the best. I did like that part, but I thought really, like I said, the part of the show that I liked the most, or part of this episode I liked the most, was the point when Ilanka was revealed, and she told her story, and things started to come together a little bit. Where okay, like she has an interesting thing. It ties back to an earlier point in the episode from the story that she saw on the internet. She's getting engaged and bonding with these other people. They're getting interested in her story. So at that point, it's like, okay, I feel like it's coming together. Whereas up until that point, it felt much more, like I said, stream of consciousness. So that was, I think, the point of the episode where I was like, okay, okay, I'm feeling the vibe now, as opposed to just kind of being kind of bored.
Mm-hmm. Did
But
you have a
kind of there?
Did you have a favorite moment, Jen?
I had a couple. I mean, the elevator moment with during the tour is one that really got to me. There was also that really funny moment where when Ilanka is following Anya to the room, and the hospice was there to accommodate her. Like she had buttons on the wall for, to open doors and stuff like that, but not in the library. When she kicked the door, that just tickled me. I remember like laughing that, and I really wanted Ilanka's onesie. That was one of the other things that I wrote there. I thought that, yeah, I think those were my favorite moments. That and the Doctor Who pinball machine.
Here's one thing that I kind of touched on it earlier. One of the things that they said that was not a thing in the 90s was when Ilanka was talking with Brian at the party, and they were talking about a book or something, and she goes, I thought it was kind of meh. I'm like, bro,
oh, yeah.
That is not 1994, okay? That is not, that is your 20 years off easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that kind of stuff really takes me out of it, because I'm like, whoever wrote this must have been alive in the 90s, right? You got to know, like you write what you know. You know the song. Somebody should have told them. Like you're trying a little too hard to be cute. Actually, that was one of my notes. Was they're trying too hard to give the kids cute lines. Like you don't need to be that cute. Yeah. I don't like cute, fake, forced, unnatural dialogue. I like it to sound real. Even if it's boring, I want it to sound like how people actually talk. I want it to be real. The other one that was borderline was when Ilanka says, I got this. And I'm like, ooh, that's borderline too. I mean, we could think about it, but 28 years ago, I don't know.
Yeah.
Muhammad's thinking about it. He's like, maybe. It's
I can't
close.
remember.
But definitely not the meh thing.
Not common. Yeah.
No.
Not Tutankhamun. Anyway, that the only person that I think kind of got away, a couple people get away with that. One was Quentin Tarantino can create dialogue that people don't actually say or speak like, and it kind of works. And Kevin Smith is another guy that, like, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but if you've ever watched Clerks, dude, people don't talk like that. It was like the 90s version of Shakespeare with the way they say all these weird, long, sentence, elaborate things. And I'm like, that is so unnatural, but they're quotable and fun to hear, I guess. Anyway. Well, speaking of quotable and fun to talk about, Jen, it's time to talk about you for a moment. What kind of tea are you drinking, by the way?
It's called Immunity Berry from Tea Lyra.
Ooh.
It's really nice. I've had a cold for the last week, so I'm like, yeah, no, this will work. It's not poisonous Klingon tea.
Not blood wine.
Yeah, it's not blood wine, sadly.
So you are known as the Klingon Pop Warrior. Can you please tell us why?
The Klingon Pop Warrior is a music project where I sing pop and rock songs translated into the Klingon language. I couldn't be a pop princess because that just doesn't work. So I'm a pop warrior. And it came about because I did some cheesy 90s songs originally. That was the genesis of the project was Kiss Me by Sixpence None the Richer. and then Britney Spears' Baby One More Time. So like it was the idea of 90s pop princess music, and so yeah, that was the kind of the genesis of the project. It was actually originally just supposed to be a little background thing for a podcast, and then people really liked it. We did a music video, and I was like, well, maybe I can use some of my bandmates to help me record an EP, and talked to some members in the Klingon language community who had translated some songs, and that was 2014, and now I'm 4 EPs in and about to do a 5th. So
Wow.
That's amazing. Do you remember? I remember when we first met on the cruise in 2020. I remember I was admiring your cosplay, and you mentioned you sang Klingon Pop. I was like, oh, have you heard of the Klingon Pop Warrior?
Well, what was so funny was you said, I was saying to somebody, I was like, yeah, when I ran into him, he was like, you really look like this girl who sings pop and rock songs in Klingon. And I was like, that's me.
That's amazing.
I do remember a couple Klingon ladies that did an amazing rendition of, I think it was Time After Time.
Oh, wow.
Was that you, or was that, because I remember that one.
No.
Damn it.
But I did recently translate that song. Now I will say,
really?
Yes, I did. I translated that one last year for charity. I do a big charity event each year, and I let people vote on songs for me to translate. And so that was how last year's EP came about, and this year's EP.
Where can we get those EPs?
Bandcamp is the best place to find me, but you can also find me on Spotify and all the things. So
you have a Twitch stream, I believe, too, right?
Yeah, I stream a couple days on Twitch. I do Star Trek Online on Tuesday nights, and I do whatever floats my narrative fancy on Saturday mornings. So right now I'm playing Dragon Age Origins because I've never played before. And like Mass Effect is my Garrus pillow. Mass Effect is my like favorite, my all-time favorite. So just diving into the BioWare games.
Yeah, lots of biology in that game. And if people want to see you live, you're going to be at Starbase Indy here in next month.
I am.
Love Starbase Indy. Lisa Meeson, the organizer, are phenomenal.
It's so much fun. I'm really excited because Mary's coming back this year. So when Mary came to Starbase Indy in 2019, she actually sang No Scrubs with me.
Oh,
and,
nice.
It was so much fun. And so I haven't had a chance to reach out to her to see if she wants to do something else this year. But yeah, it was so much fun. She's great. She actually my music got recommended to her. She like somehow found me when she got cast in Discovery, and so it was like she was listening to my music during all that, which made me feel really good. I pride myself on my pronunciation and my translations. I'm a member of the Klingon Language Institute. I work with members of the Klingon Language Institute, and that project helped. Actually, it was this project was really what helped get me the language consultancy for Prodigy. So I'm actually.
So that was the episode Kobayashi. We saw you in the credits there.
Yeah. Yes. I finally went, and there's more coming. Yes. I'm so excited. I can't talk about it, but I'm real excited about it.
Yeah.
That's outstanding. Well, kudos to you. I got to
do some real cool stuff. So yeah.
I mean, you've got an official credit on official Star Trek. That's pretty amazing. By the way, everybody at home, Mary was Mary Chieffo, who played L'Rell in Discovery, and soon in Strange New Worlds and Section 31. Just kidding. I have no idea. But everybody's hoping for it. Everybody's hoping she's going to come back somewhere. Sorry, you were saying, Mohammed?
Well, that's okay. Right before we went live, you mentioned something about a charity project you were working on. Do you want to say something about that?
Oh, yeah. So this is my 8th year participating in Extra Life. It's a gaming marathon for Children's Miracle Network hospitals. Since I started, I think if I hit my goal this year, I will have raised over $25,000 since I started doing it. And I'm less than 500 away from my goal. I do a big 24-hour live stream event every year. It's actually October 29th is my 24-hour event. And the songs that got voted on, I had multiple like unlock levels. So all 4 songs got unlocked this year. So I've actually got to finish one translation up this weekend. And I'm a little bit worried I may have to move my concert. Normally I debut the songs that everybody voted on the live stream. But because I lost my voice, because I was sick, I'm a little worried I might have to move my concert, but I'm going to play it by ear. We'll see. But yeah, I'm super excited. And that was how I ended up translating Time After Time and Dream On last year. And then this year I'm doing 7 Nation Army. I'm so excited. That translation turned out really cool.
Actually, I'm glad you're saying that, because I wanted to ask you, what are your 3 favorite songs that you have translated and or sung into Klingon?
Hands down, Love is a Battlefield wins every time. That was on it was on my first EP, but I got to do a redo. I redid it, like a remix, with this great artist from the West Coast, Unwoman, who she plays cello, and her version of Love is a Battlefield used like taiko drums and stuff. And so we did a collaboration where I sang over her version of Love is a Battlefield, and it's one of my most favorite things that I've ever recorded.
Can you give us a sample of one of the lines? I know you're a little sick, so you don't have to sing it, but just speak one of the lines.
Oh, so Machosh Mamujenu Jalachpar. That's
wow, very nice.
That was wonderful. Wow.
Very nice.
If I had to go any further, I would have cracked, but I made it there. So yeah, that's one of my favorites. So that one, I really, really love my translation of Time After Time. It's about like losing your love on a battlefield and like getting separated. And so you can't find each other after the battle's over. And so that translation just turned out really lovely. Every once in a while it makes me cry depending on the mood that I'm in while I'm singing it. Which just it seems weird, I guess, to some people that Klingons might cry, but and then Mother. I do Mother by Danzig.
Wow, very nice. Oh, that's all I need to know.
And I did that one in what was amazing was I did that in 2017, 2 years before Mary walked across the screen and declared herself as Chancellor, the Mother. And I was like, I got a song for that.
Oh my God.
And she does want to bang heads with you.
That's
a line from the song, Muhammad. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's true. And actually that's really fun. That line in there's a word for that in Klingon, banging foreheads together, and like there's a slang. So yeah, that song, that was the first song that I had a translation credit on. I translated it with a friend, and then eventually now I'm translating almost all of my own songs as I've gotten more comfortable.
Are you able to give us a slight sample of that one?
Which one, Mother?
Yeah.
Ooh.
And if you're not comfortable doing it, we get it. You're still a little ill. She sips her tea.
I love it.
Let me see. Is this tea gonna get me there?
College wall willekande chotleje bibich danech shock van vi anglach bomde iulich chokel. No, there it is.
Wow.
Love it. Love it. That was fantastic.
Damn.
My goal with the project was always like, I'm a musician. I've sung in bands for a really long time. And so, I was an actor who got a gig, and that was to be in a Klingon Christmas Carol. And so that was how I learned the language and got super into Star Trek fandom. And so like the Pop Warrior project is really this marriage of like a lot of things that I really love. And it was always really important to me when I did it that like musically, you're not going to be able to come for me. Like my arrangements, everything had like the way we did the arrangements is really specific. I can sing, I can carry a tune. So it's like, if people are going to laugh, they're laughing with me. Nobody's going to laugh when they hear those arrangements. That's always been my goal, is to do something that musically makes me really proud and happy, and is also funny, but stands on its own. So
very nice. Awesome. I also see a cool What We Left Behind poster. behind you.
yeah,
Also
yeah.
very cool.
I definitely contributed to that one too. That's
awesome.
Incredible documentary.
Can you
So
tell us
good.
what your Twitch handle is so people can follow you?
Oh man, I'm so easy to find. I'm like SEO to the hilt. So I'm Klingon Pop, twitch.tv/Klingon Pop Warrior. I'm at Klingon Pop on Twitter, at Klingon Pop Warrior on TikTok. I just finally joined the Tiki Talkies and have been having a lot of fun with that. So yeah, I'm very easy to find.
Awesome.
Fantastic. All
like
right.
John Van Sitters follows me on Twitter. That was the day that I found that out was the day that my stomach hit the floor. I was like, please don't,
well, I'm sure it's because your content is awesome.
Please don't sue me.
Oh, you almost sue you.
That's true. He's also the guy that he can make or break you. That's true.
Yeah.
All right. Let us move forward. Muhammad's been practicing his Klingon Tai Chi.
Oh, hell yeah.
Karate chop for the bottom line. The next phase of the show.
Muhammad calls it the bottom line. Everybody else calls it, well, they call it the bottom line. I call it the terrible twos. It's the final two questions of the show. Pretty much the two most important questions. We should have just gone straight to it, but we don't. We spend an hour talking about the show, and then we get to the nitty gritty starting right now. Question number one is, Dr. Muhammad Noor, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this first episode of the Midnight Club entitled, what was it, the final chapter or something? By the way, again, clever title. It's cool to have the first episode be called the final chapter. Scale of 1 to 10?
Scale of 1 to 10, I will give it a 7. I'll give it a 7.0. I was debating between like 6.8 to 7, but I was like, I'm kind of convinced as we talked about it, like, okay, it's pretty good. I'll go with the 7. Yeah, overall, again, I wasn't invested until near the end, but by the end I did feel a little bit invested. Like, okay, I feel like it's drawn me in at this point now.
What about you, Jen? Scale of 1 to 10? There are no wrong answers, by the way.
We'll be quite different, I'm sure, all of us.
Honestly, I'm probably about an 8. I enjoyed it. It wasn't what I expected. And so yeah, it felt a little bit teeny boppery, but not so much so that I won't come back for more. Yeah. Or it would turn me off.
Well, I myself was very turned off. Not that much. I'm giving it a 5.5. It just the horror aspect, not only did it feel so out of place, it felt poorly delivered. But I felt like almost everything outside of that felt good and was interesting and was fine. The dialogue was a little messy. The 90s references were a little messy, but that's part of the dialogue. But I thought that I was just happy with taking the horror element out of it and just making it about these kids, and that's a good premise for a show, and it was well put together. And so that's where the good lies for me, and the horror was the bad. But those were everybody tell us how close you were on your predictions in the live chat. But here comes the real question. Question number 2 is the one people tune in for. Jen's like, oh, I can't wait to hear what this is. Well, you may not like it. For the purposes of this podcast, we all had to watch the first episode of the Midnight Club. But now that the podcast is over and you're free to move about the internet, would you, of your own volition, Muhammad, watch the second episode?
I've been really stuck on this one. Like when I first finished watching it, the answer would have been no. But after discussing it, after thinking about it, I'm kind of like, okay, now I'm a little bit curious. I'm a little bit curious about that shadow that was following her at the end. I guess the question is would rather than will.
Yes.
So I guess I'll say yes, but it's like barely yes.
Woo. That's a tight yes.
That's a tight yes.
Neck
so
and neck.
Again, it would have been a no right after I watched it. It's like, I don't want to watch the second one. But now I'm like, there was nothing else on. Maybe if I talked to Jen about it, I don't know. I could be
You guys could be watch buddies.
There you go.
Well, Jen, did we do anything to change your mind? Would you, of your own volition, theoretically watch the second?
Yeah, actually, I probably would. I haven't yet, but I thought about it. um, we're in the middle of rewatching Stranger Things because we didn't finish. We haven't watched the most recent season because it's been so long. We're like, let's just rewatch the whole damn thing. But I think honestly, when we're done with our Stranger Things watch through, I'm gonna be like, hey, let's finish that one. That's kind of cute.
Oh, that's an interesting question. Was this more or less horror than Stranger Things?
Oh, less.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
Which was, I don't think most people would you classify Stranger Things as horror?
Maybe a little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you
Sci-fi horror.
Okay. Just curious.
I'd like to answer that question if I may.
Yeah, I was just kidding. Well, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Because I hadn't thought of. No, I'm saying your question, Muhammad. Because I hadn't thought of that. It's a really interesting question, and I would say that Stranger Things is all about horror. Like the whole tenor of the show there, even when there isn't something scary going on, the mission is about whatever is happening or their relationships, even when it's just relationship stuff, it's under, the umbrella of a horror story. Whereas the horror aspect was just, it was just completely separate from what the story was about. And then it kind of became a little relevant towards the end. But anyway, it's a good question. Interesting. So I would not watch the second episode of this thing. I got no reason to. There's nothing I'm curious about. There's nothing I care about. I do like Fran or Jasmine or what's her name? Sandra. Sandra's cool. What I liked about it was, the premise and the kids and their interesting stories. And there was a lot of good stuff in there, but it didn't make me curious enough to want to watch the second episode. I didn't become emotionally invested or attached to any of them. But anyway, that's the story. I do think some people will enjoy it, and I think some people are going to say, dude, it gets way better. You'll be surprised the sickly girl isn't the first one to die. It's this other person, and it's heartbreaking, and then new people. And you could go on forever with this. Is a show you could do for 10 seasons, because when some die, new ones come in. You keep bringing in fresh blood.
There's plenty of Christopher Pike books too. Like, honestly, I stand by my opening statement of like Midnight Club is a mid-90s high school flashback fueled by Christopher Pike. Like, if you dug Christopher Pike books as a kid, like, can't hurt.
Go for it. Go for it at warp speed. All right. Well, that's about it for us, everybody. Remember to make your suggestions for next month, which is 80s sitcom month. So make us your suggestions. Tell us where we can find it. And tell us what you think of the Midnight Club. Are we wrong or right? Bash the hell out of me if you guys want to be wrong. It's up to you. But that's it for us. What I'm trying to say is this podcast was very likable, like these kids.
This podcast elicited a diversity of perspectives,
like these kids.
Should do yours in Klingon. Just kidding.
I was trying to podcast. Podcast is good. This podcast is delightful.
Oh,
thank you.
See you guys.
Delightful having you on.
All right. So everybody, we will see you next time. And thanks for joining us. And that's about it. Remember what Mr. Michael Kenyon Rosenberg always likes to say.
Don't forget to be an organ donor, and don't forget to watch the first of things. I'm assuming you're not going to say freeze frame like a sick kid. That'd be horrible.
Freeze frame like a sick kid. Just kidding. Freeze frame like your favorite character.
There you go. I like that.
That shitty smile and pretend that